Today, the Reserve Bank's Financial Stability Report starts with this statement. Financial stability risks have increased over recent months. Some highly indebted families will feel the pain of the higher interest rates. Then there's also the International Monetary Fund on top of this, which overnight again warned of an increased risk of a global recession, which you sense is spooking not only the Treasurer, but also the Prime Minister in the throes of making the next federal budget. So let's bring in here David Bassner, is the Chief Economist at Beta Shares. David, thanks for your time today. The RBA, the Treasurer, the Prime Minister are today all warning about the economic pressure, that it's rising. So how bad is it likely to be?
Yeah, good to be with you, Ross. I think the Treasurer has been, making these warnings for a while now since he took the job. So he's continuing with it. I'm a little bit mixed about the need to constantly make these types of warnings. We are facing pressures here. The good news here in Australia is, as your previous interviewer just mentioned, the RBA has stepped back a little bit in terms of the aggressiveness of rate rises. Wages growth here is still under control. And so there isn't a case to need to force our economy into recession to get inflation under control. Having said that, the risks are globally. The same can't be said for the United States, unfortunately, and that's where most of the risks are. Also, Europe, of course, are dealing with the energy crisis associated with the Russia-Ukraine war, and China's going through its own slowdown due to zero COVID policy and overbuilding in the property sector. So there's a lot of global risks out there, and that's probably, unfortunately, what is going to weigh on Australia. That's the main risk. It's not a homegrown risk. I don't think the RBA is going to cause a recession. It's more, what may happen globally and our inability to sort of avoid a downturn if the global economy gets a lot worse.
Okay, so David, I want you to talk me through this, okay? So it's not a homegrown recession, it's something that's happening from overseas. What does that look like, though? Does it manifest itself, as we're seeing now, in a very low Australian dollar? Is it that there's a lack of credit available to banks and others that pushes interest rates up even higher? Where does it come from? Because at the moment, we are a beneficiary of higher commodity prices as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war. You can see that with the trade balance that came in this week. So, where is it that Australia will feel a recession or a downturn, especially out of the United States?
Well, I think there's two channels. Firstly, on commodity prices. As you point out, they have benefited, from the Russia-Ukraine war. They benefited from the strength of the global economy coming out of COVID. But if the US does go into recession and China, continues with its policy, commodity prices will fall. And that boost that we've been getting, will be unwound. That income benefit will be unwound. The other channel is just through business sentiment. What we see historically is when the US goes into recession, business investment around the world tends to be cut back. Businesses, because many of these companies, the major companies in Australia are global companies. And so they make investment employment decisions really on a global basis. And so if they're having to cut back in Europe, in the United States and in Asia, that chances are they're going to cut back in Australia as well. So it's those sort of linkages that will hurt us. And as you said, the benefit at the moment is, the RBA. I think I go back to the wages point. We don't need to slow our economy unduly. So I think the RBA will have greater leeway to cut interest rates even if the US does, or the world economy does go into a downturn. But historically, every time I'll just leave you with this point on this, every time the US has gone into recession over the past, few decades, our unemployment rate has gone up by at least 1%, if not more. So, as the old saying goes, when the US sneezes, we catch cold.
It's going to be fascinating to watch that as well, because a few other aspects to it, I guess. One is the currency, where Australia obviously pays more and rises inflation as a result of the lower currency that we've got. And as you point out, the second thing is at the moment we can absorb a little bit of unemployment, but long term, you don't want a lot of it long term. David Bassner from Beta Shares, always good to chat to you, and many thanks for your time today.
No worries. Great to be with you, Ross.